So before we take a look at our agenda, I'm really curious just because I meet with so many business owners and operators, just kind of where everyone is coming from, right? And so many of the businesses that we work with, they have desks that look like this. Tons of paper and pen everywhere, tons of files, lots of things to get organized. They've got sticky notes everywhere for reminders. They have sticky notes on the wall, and oftentimes just their desk has, they're using their laptop for one thing, they're jotting down notes in another, then they've got to update the calendar, and then they're already manually kind of creating to-do lists for the teams in the back. A lot of times the calendar, sometimes a paper calendar, they're again having to update their personal calendar, maybe another teammate's calendar, the community calendar that's in the office, just really having to manage everything very manually. Not to mention all of the clipboards that I've seen in various warehouse tours that I have been on throughout my time visiting prospects and clients. And I want to just commend the business owners that have gotten this far with these systems, right? In launching a business, there was a world before you even had a pen and paper, before you had a calendar, before you had sticky notes, before you had clipboards on the wall, keeping everyone organized and informed. And nearly every business owner that I talk with has started with some type of system like that. And so you've gotten very far in your business with these types of systems. But when you think about the future of the business, there will be, I assume, a desire to grow the business, right? I know that everyone is in this industry because they love working with folks, because they love making people's big days come through. But they also like making money, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? You need to make money in order to keep your staff employed, to keep yourself employed, if that is just who you're supporting. You need to make money in order to grow your clientele if you want to eventually expand. And what I find is whether you're using completely manual processes or whether you're kind of starting to adopt technology but still doing things manually, there will come this ceiling where you will hit growth. And breaking past that is going to require changes to your process. Because how you've operated when you are a $10,000 company is not the same way you can operate at a $100,000 company. It's not the way you can operate a $500,000 company or $1 million company, because your problems change and how you solve them should change too. So what we're going to talk about today is how Goodshuffle can provide the tools to help you break through that ceiling. The parts of our product that are created to help you grow, whether that is from 1 to 2 people, whether that is from 2 to 10 people, whatever stage of growth you're in, we can help address some of the operational inefficiencies. Because even the most tech-forward clients that I've met with so far are still doing some things manually. There's some part of their process that they have hung on to because that is just the way they have always done things. Or, Bob has been with us forever. This is the way Bob likes to do it. And so this is how we're doing things. So I'm excited to go through the platform with you today. And what I would love for you to do before we jump into an overview of Goodshuffle is just jot down either in the notes section on your computer, if you want to drop them into the chat and start a conversation with the other owners and operators in attendance today, you can drop it in there, or write it on that sticky note or in your notebook. An audit of some of the manual tasks. When you think about going to do this one thing, whether it's updating the calendar or creating the load list for the crew, or following back up on billing reminders for clients. What are the maybe one or two things that it's like, gosh, if I could just get this off my list, whether that happens daily, weekly, monthly, I would be able to spend another hour on relationship building, on following up with proposals that I have sent, or networking in my local community. If I could automate this part of my process, then I wouldn't have to spend so much money correcting mistakes when we get orders wrong. Because all of the things that you are doing manually create costs to your business. The most expensive are probably one of two things, either the physical cost of correcting a mistake. Man, we oversold a particular chair and now we've got to go on Wayfair and overnight, 23 more of these particular chairs, or we've got to go to Charlie down the street and rent those from him. All of those are a physical cost to the business. You are having to cut a check to correct that mistake. And those are just no fun to make, right? Similarly to, I'm looking at a bag in the corner of my room over here, the Amazon returns that I forgot to make on time. And so I'm now sitting on 2 extra dresses that I did not plan on keeping in my wardrobe. So there's physical costs to your business. There's also time costs. So whether that is your time having to unravel a mistake, whether that is the time that your delivery folks have to make an extra trip back to the warehouse because they forgot something, right? There's a component of minutes or hours in the day that you have now lost trying to address this manual task. So write those down so you can kind of think through, okay, what is the value to me if I corrected this problem? Because that's something only you can answer, right? I can talk with you about some of the ways that the common mistakes, human copy paste mistakes that are happening in businesses, the manual processes that our folks are following. We can talk through some of the benefits to addressing those errors, but ultimately you have to decide if that trade-off is worth it. So go ahead and write down some of those manual tasks. We're going to go ahead and take an overview of the platform. I see some familiar names in attendance. I see some not familiar names in attendance. So that's lovely. I am so excited that some of you are maybe checking out Goodshuffle Pro for the first time. Obviously, anyone watching the recording in the future may or may not have seen Goodshuffle in action. So we'll do a quick overview of the platform just to bring everyone up to speed. And then we'll drill down on the common places where Goodshuffle Pro automates to eliminate that human error and again, reduce friction in your business. If that sounds like a good plan to you, then I am going to reorganize and reorient my screen so we can jump in and get started. And we're going to start today on the homepage of Goodshuffle. The dashboard you'll see when you log in, because I want you to start to see, okay, when I log into Goodshuffle, what does my day start out looking like, right? A lot of people are looking to their calendar, their notebook, their to-do list. And so we're bringing that here all into one view. And Goodshuffle is handling and tracking everything from concept, so when an event is coming into being, to completion. So you've picked everything up from the client site, you've brought it back to the warehouse, and you're reconciling everything on the back end. The dashboard is giving you a really close-up view as what's happening on the horizon, right? When and where those events are happening this week. Obviously, you're going to want to make sure that you're collecting money from folks who owe you money, unread emails, and of course, your to-do list. So tactically, right? Hey, what do I have to do today? This is all in one place here. Beyond that, a lot of business owners want to know and understand what their flow looks like financially. So everything is going to be color-coded in Goodshuffle, so you know events that are confirmed. This is cash you can count on. It's green, good to go. versus opportunities that are pending. And those are reflected in a blue state, which is just, hey, the ball's in the client's court. They're looking at my quote or my proposal, but they've not yet accepted it. And then yellow, which are brand new opportunities to you. You've not sent that out to the client for review. And then, of course, understanding, what's working well in your business is also a great thing to keep a pulse on as well. So we have your leaderboard that's going to divvy up your top performing inventory, your best clients, what venues you're doing the most business in, and what types of events you're doing. And what's cool about this is you can use this in a historical sense, and go back, as far in different time ranges here as well. And then again, another tactical component is your asset management. So that could be hard, soft goods. And what we're tracking here is, hey, in the event that, like we talked about, hey, we're having to go to Charlie's Chairs to borrow some chairs for the Scott event on the 13th. Where are those? What are those assets? What are those events related to? And what other problems do I need to solve, right? So if I have some drape or some ghost chairs here, I've got outages, overages coming up this week. So that is clearly a problem that I need to solve. So tactically, we're condensing everything that may be in a several different places, either in your office, in your notebooks, etc., and bringing that into one view here. So just by nature of seeing everything in one place, you have a fuller sense of what's happening in the business and can hopefully make smarter decisions on what to prioritize, what's urgent, what do I need to, what problems do I need to solve? And then you can drill down on this data from here. This project page is an awesome place to build custom reports. Again, related to each stage, you can drill down on, clients that you need to follow up with, clients who haven't paid you, problems that you need to solve, overages that your team needs to correct. So there's a ton of opportunity that we'll circle back to here. But I wanted to take a look specifically at an event to help you see all that we've got going on as far as how Goodshuffle Pro can help. Now, I have this, what we call project for Nick and Rachel's wedding coming up. This is a proposal and contract that I've put together. And, one thing to think about is I'm going to go over some examples today that are primarily related to decor and florals and rentals, but any of these assets can be traded. And I'll try to zoom out and talk about the scope of how we solve this problem related to events beyond design and decor. And if you have needs beyond what I'm showing you here, we can always set up one-on-one demos as well. So what we're looking at here is I've got Nick and Rachel's wedding. I'm able to pretty readily see this is kind of like a digital file folder, right? So you may have your project binder, your project folder for different events. Oftentimes for folks that contains things like the contract, billing, receipts that the client has made, etc., lists of things that they need to produce or order or pull from the warehouse. Then they're going to also have things like the layout for the event or inspiration photos, things of that nature. And then one thing that is rather impossible, not impossible, but rather challenging, I should say, to keep track of is all of the changes along the way. And Goodshuffle Pro, as we'll see today, does a really good job of that on the logs tab. So as you're building a quote and contract in Goodshuffle, you're going to see here that we can divvy things up in a variety of different ways. For this particular client, I have this into ceremony, reception, and logistics, obviously being like how things are coming and going to the event site. But then I also have these sections that are going to really spell out to the client what it is we're doing. And when we're doing something like pricing, this is oftentimes where getting a quote out the door or a contract out the door is slowed down a lot. And so you can see on this Mondop with greenery here, Goodshuffle Pro is actually consolidating all the prices for the stems, the infrastructure that we need, right? The physical asset of the frame, as well as some labor to price this item for Nick and Rachel. Now, if Rachel changed her mind, or perhaps she wanted to make it even more flush with red roses, you'll notice any change that I am making here to the stem count. Let's say we're going from 12 to 92. That is not only increasing the cost of this particular line item, but it's also driving up the cost of the Mondop as well. And you can absolutely positively choose what the client sees. So in this particular instance on the Mondop, I'm showing the client on her quote, hey, here's what it's going to look like overall, but I'm not showing the breakdown of all of the different stem counts. Some florists and designers like that. Some folks want to show additional details. So you can see here when it comes to the reception tables, I have a list of details. So in this vase are these stems are going in. Here's the table runner we're using. Here's the votives that we're bringing. And what I like about this type of setup is the fact that you can give the client that level of detail without the client nickeling and diming you, right? You're not going to have to show the price for every particular asset, just the overall cost. And when I think about this in reducing human error or reducing the mistakes that we as humans make, especially in managing the relationship with the client, has a lot to do with clearly communicating with the client. And so, how often do you send out a proposal to a client and they were assuming that teal meant one thing when your teal Victor vase looked another way, or your version of, what a spray rose looks like in comparison to the blush or Somerset roses was a little bit different, and how you envisioned everything coming together was a little bit different than how the client had envisioned it. And so if we can demonstrate this to the client by showing, hey, here's how everything is going to come together, you can not only get on the same page about the overall vision for the event, but if there's a lot else that's going on a part of this event setup, right? I can see there's like tableware here, there's tablecloths, there's chairs. Well, by articulating what it is I'm bringing as part of this look, the client is now very clear on what it is I am and am not bringing. This is going to make sure there's no finger pointing between you and the client. And then when it goes time for the event setup, your team has all of the detail they need to bring this event to life. And that's not only going to be translated into a load list for the team where they can mark things off in your process, but you can also have internal notes from the team as well. And those notes can contain, all sorts of helpful information, from like tips on setup to, hey, here's how we need to handle these items with care, or how the client wanted to see them, etc. And the more my sales team or client-facing teams can put these notes in on the front end, the less time there is managing that detail and the back and forth throughout the planning and execution process. And then when it comes to setup, it's very clear to the execution team what has been promised to the client. So you're creating an ability to create this sense of consistency is just going to be amazing for your client management. Now, when it comes to sending this off to the client in the form of a proposal, there's a lot that I find that should be very easy for the client, but isn't always. And so what we do in Goodshuffle is make it super easy for your teams to manage this process with the client. So let's say you're not working with a bride directly. You're actually working with a client Topanga on a event for Pembroke alumni gala. Okay, so with a few tweaks here, I can take what was on Rachel and Nick's wedding, repurpose that here. But a couple of things I also want to point out is when I added Topanga as the client, you can see that where we usually produce events for her and the organization that she belongs to automatically added. Furthermore, I have set up in this account the ability for Topanga's special terms and conditions. She's a tax exempt client, so those automatically apply. She happens to have different payment terms here, so those auto apply. The tax certificate and tax resale taxes are automatically stripped from this contract because she's a nonprofit and she gets a discount. So I, as a salesperson, have made one choice to add Topanga to this event. And with that one choice, my relationships are managed, all of the customer settings are auto-applied. So I'm not having to think about changing those from client to client. And the client feels cared for because they're not having to remind me of a special discount or payment terms that we have set up in the past. From here, I can go in and make some further tweaks here. So obviously we're not going to have a ceremony, but maybe we're going to have a reception and we're going to have a VIP dessert room. And so once I add that here, let's say in the dessert room, I want to go add my donut wall and I want to add a backdrop. So what's cool here is anytime that I'm adding, let's say this backdrop here, you can set up Goodshuffle Pro to automatically add items. I can't tell you how many times, a simple like donut wall, that's pretty easy to manage, like not a big deal. But if I have a backdrop that contains all these parts and pieces, so often when I'm working with businesses, a salesperson forgets like, oh yeah, we have to bring the sandbags to keep this upright. Or, for this particular event, it's going to be outside. So we don't need sandbags. We actually need stakes. And by having this just readily available for the team to make those updates, it's going to eliminate the error of when the execution team goes to load the truck, they're now not grabbing sandbags, they're grabbing lawn stakes. When I'm sending this out to the client, another thing that beyond just the expectations of what it is that is going to the event site is kind of our timeline for how this moves along. And so often I work with event folks who are just so eager to make the client's dreams come true that they're not really great at setting expectations of how quickly we need to run through things. And that's where Goodshuffle Pro's quote expiration comes into play. So what you can do is set up when you want a quote to expire. So that could be 10 days after a quote is sent. That could be, hey, I want it to be on a specific day. Like I want to give the client until the end of the month. Or it could be before, the most recent quote is sent. So you can really tailor this to however the client relationship needs to be managed. But basically what you're going to do here is set up automatic reminders so that in the event that you get really busy and forget to follow up with the client, Goodshuffle Pro can set those reminders for you. From there, you even have options to like, do you want to just disable somebody's ability to sign a contract? Nothing worse than getting a surprise contract sent after you've kind of moved on. Or do you want to just remove somebody's ability to move forward completely? Basically, like take this off your purview. And you've got some choices there that the Goodshuffle Pro onboarding team can work through with you. The important thing here is automating that follow-up is just going to be one less thing that you have to take care of in the pursuit of getting more contracts signed and paid. When we're sending the quotes and contracts off to the client, this is another personalization technique that's so easy for you to tailor your messaging to a client without having to repeat and reinvent the wheel every time. So not only can you have different versions of your sending quote template to the client, maybe that changes based on the type of event they're having or where their event is taking place. 10 companies that we work with, for example, may flag different things for a stake tent versus a water barrel tent. Social clients or corporate clients may have different language. And then the other one, maybe a first-time client versus a repeat client, right? A first-time client, you might want to set some of the expectations a little bit more clearly. But for somebody that you've done business with for a long time, you can keep it short, snappy, and sweet. So you not only have the different templates available, but you also have these different personalization tokens as well. So these can be customized from template to template and automatically pull information from the quote that you've put together and plug this in. So that personalization is typically so key into calling out specific details, but with this functionality, you're not having to manually add in those details, running the risk of accidentally copying and pasting the wrong information. On the client side, we already talked about how Goodshuffle Pro can follow up with the client automatically. So often we find that that is not even needing to be leaned on as much because this process for the client is so easy. So a lot of folks who are working with kind of like a paper and pen system or freebie solutions that they're bringing together may have to send the client a quote. They hear back from the client, have to send a contract, then they get that signed, then they have to send a payment link. And those are at least 3 times that you could easily forget a step, right? How often have you forgotten to send out a quote to a client and then when they've approved it, forget to send their terms or even update the terms? Goodshuffle Pro is simplifying all of that. So with one link, the client can come on, receive the email from you, and they'll receive this great quote, contract, and payment link that makes it really easy for them to pay. You'll also notice that Goodshuffle Pro is flagging for the client, hey, here's when the quote is going to expire, so you can set that expectation appropriately with the client. This, by the way, is all mobile friendly for the client as well. So let's say they are pulling this up on a cell phone or tablet. Let me just shrink my screen down here. We make that very convenient for them to still go through. They can zoom in on any photos that they want to see. And then to move forward, they simply approve the quote, sign the contract, and then pay online. Now remember, this contract for Topanga was on net terms, so Goodshuffle is not going to collect a payment for them until after the event. That is something that Goodshuffle Pro will take on for you, are those automated payment reminders. Now, in the event that you collect a deposit up front, you can configure that in your account settings. It can even change from client to client if you have differences here. And in that case, Goodshuffle Pro would collect that payment from the client, again, using the same link. Then your client can pay right online and you can give them options to pay by credit card, e-check, or even Affirm. This makes it easy breezy for your clients to put in their information. They can choose to keep the card on file with you. They can even opt to auto pay so they don't have to worry about paying their final balance, and you can give them the choice to automate that on their end. You're not going to have to worry about manually updating anything because Goodshuffle Pro will automatically send the clients copies of the signed contract and receipts for payments. Plus, we'll update the status of the contract that payment information, and tee up a payment reminder to send closer to the event date. So all of these things are taken care of on your behalf. You can even see those emails getting tracked in the messages tab here. So all of your email history with the client is here as well, just further reducing the need to dig through your inbox on any particular details for this event. And Goodshuffle Pro, again, will flag for you if those emails are automated or just sent from you directly. When it comes to collaborating with teams, this is also where I find that things can sometimes fall apart. Is okay, the client has had this really great client experience, and now it's time to start to set up and execute for the event. What's great about Goodshuffle is, again, because all of the details for the event are here in one place, no one is having to copy and paste information from one doc to another or one part of the drive for another. Not only does that put your business at risk when you're creating those assets, maintaining those throughout all of the changes for the event can be really stressful as well on both your client-facing teams and your execution folks, right? The people who are executing on your behalf, like I have Danny added in here, only want to do the best job they can for you. And the best way for you to guarantee that is to give someone like Danny direct access into Goodshuffle Pro. So I actually, once I add Danny into the event, Danny's going to log in, but he's going to have a limited view of Goodshuffle. So he's not going to be able to see the contractor billing tab. He won't even be able to see the logs tab where we're tracking all the changes, but he can collaborate with you on the fulfillment tab. And you'll see here that this mirrors exactly what assets need to be tracked, all of the details here on the notes tab, but it's stripping away any of the financial information. So something like that is going to be completely removed from Danny's view, but he will be able to see the notes tab here where things like don't break these vases could auto apply or custom notes could be added by your client facing teams. Danny will also have access to the pull sheet, so no one's time is going to get wasted. No one will manually have to worry about making sure that every time that we add the copper votives that we remember to bring tea lights, those relationships can even automatically exist. So you don't forget those to cross those T's and dot those I's, which when you're dealing with high emotion events, events that are important to people's big day, and just all of the detail that goes into the events. It's so easy to forget those little things, and Goodshuffle is making that simple on you and your folks to manage. Okay, so let's say this event goes off without a hitch. Danny and his team get everything loaded, they get everything dropped off, and they get everything picked up. So when it's time to bring these assets back to the warehouse, a lot of times it's important to make and mark anything that is damaged or gone missing. And Goodshuffle Pro makes that convenient for your teams to help you manage. So when they're checking items back into the warehouse, let's say that 4 of these Victor copper votives were damaged. So all Danny and his team are going to need to do is strip those from the available inventory. And what's great is that's actually creating the ability for them to report on the damage, give additional detail here, and save this as a report for that inventory item. So not only will that be on the asset itself of, hey, here's when something's gotten damaged or gone missing, as you can see down here, but Goodshuffle is also going to automatically manage that inventory and check what upcoming events are happening in case there's potential for you to have a shortage here. And that's, again, something that your team isn't going to even have to communicate. As long as they're managing that inventory, you're going to see this alert not only on the inventory items themselves, but on the actual contracts. Plus, there's a report for any conflicts coming up as well. So you're not ever going to back yourself into a corner where you didn't know as you're loading up for an event that you didn't have enough of a particular asset available. Once the team has everything closed out, again, they can flag that for you here as well. And then the reporting on these are all automated. So super easy for you to say, hey, show me what events that are, what events have my team closed out where the client still owes me money, right? You can hone in on exactly who you need to follow up with, close those events out, and make sure that nothing is missed. I haven't seen any questions come in through the chat, so I'd love to kind of take this opportunity to pause, see if there's anything that folks want to drill in or drill down to a bit further. I am also going to take a moment and put my contact information up on the screen. So in the event that you all want to get in touch with me or ask any questions, you can reach out to me and my team directly. And it's a really simple contact information. We're just sales@goodshufflepro.com. And so if you have any questions on this process or want to set up a demo, please feel free to get in touch. We've covered a lot of ground today. And so I want to kind of recap with, all of the different places that Goodshuffle, we tend to see errors pop up and consolidate that into a little bit of a recap, so that you can help evaluate, is Goodshuffle Pro the right tool for me? Is taking the step with Goodshuffle the right step? And three of the most common places that we see errors. The first is between teams, or, whether that's one other teammate or a large group, right? One person forgets to update the other person on information. That could go so far as even the client forgets to update you on a detail, or you forget to update the client on a detail. And that becomes especially crucial after the contract is signed and before the event is executed. We also see a lot when things change, right? So the client changes their mind, or you are having to source information from somebody else. Basically, whenever you're having to operate outside of your standard operating procedure, this is where I think there's the most risk for the manual systems, because generally speaking, owners and operators have enough of the balance of the business scoped so that when they've gone through a particular situation before, something gets left behind at the warehouse, the client wants to increase their order, right? The things that happen often, you may have an SOP for. Here's what we do in this case. Where you're more at risk is when things change outside of what you have a standard operating procedure for. And that's where having a flexible technology can really help and come into play. And then the third place are those common tasks, right? Of course, we can create standard operating procedures for those common scenarios, but so often they become second nature that it's easy for those to forget about those, right? Did I send that invoice out? Did I follow up with that client? Gosh, did we remember to pick up that order today or drop off an order, right? All of these things that you're doing, the details from event to event can start to bleed together. So it's important to automate as much as that as possible so that nothing slips through the cracks. And if you find yourself falling into these common errors, if you find them creeping up and it's having an impact either on your sanity, right? Like your ability to like sleep at night because you're, up worrying that you forgot something. Or maybe it's causing friction relationships. That could be professionally with your team. That could be personally with a spouse or a child or a partner because you're managing all this stress at work and that's now bleeding over into your personal life. So I want you to kind of take stock of how much of an impact these errors are having on your business. And that's going to really dictate when would make the sense to incorporate technology. L+B Event Decor, lo and behold, they came up to us during a time when they had grown a lot. And Randy was experiencing that ceiling that we talked about. And I'm happy to send you, if you haven't seen our case study on them, I'm happy to send that out to you. If you're watching this recording, I'll make sure that it's linked in the description below. But, Randy was at this point where, okay, he had a sizable operation, he had a sizable team, but he was still limited in what he could do. And so the impact of implementing technology on his business were in three main areas. Not only was he reducing his time to build quotes, and kind of on the linked to that is faster payment speeds. Those kind of, in my mind, go hand in hand. If you're getting a quote out to a client faster while they're still excited, while things are still front of mind, of course they're going to pay faster. The longer it takes you to send quotes out, the further something is from my mind. Think about why any checkout experience is so easy these days, why you can shop on Instagram. It's because those transactions need to happen as close to the excitement as possible, and then the likelihood of you completing that transaction goes up. Same principle here. Because Goodshuffle was taking care of the contracts and his team was not having to chase down as many payments, look at what also this did for the bandwidth, for the number of customers, the number of events that he and his team could execute went up dramatically. And I'll flag for you that this was an implementation of technology. This was not Randy going out and hiring a bunch of people to take on this additional bandwidth. And so when you talk about an ROI of implementing a software to grow your business versus hiring additional people to grow your business, there's this incredibly different impact to your bottom line when you implement technology. That's a basic subscription cost. That's getting everything up and running. But when you're onboarding a new human, that has to do with finding the right human, getting them to know your processes, getting them to know your inventory, all, their, not only their salary, their benefits, like all of these different things go into bringing additional folks on. So I always encourage business owners to really take a look at what technology do you have at your disposal before you have to hire. That's not to say, and I hope if it's in your future, if you want to expand your team, if you want to grow your business, I hope that those things are possible to you. But hiring a person should not be your first move in today's day and age. Looking at technology, looking at solutions for automation should be what is at the top of your list. I really appreciate you spending some time with me today and walking through the product with you. From here, there are a couple of next steps. You can feel free to follow up with me directly if you have any other questions, comments, or concerns that you want to review, or we'd like to invite you into a trial. And that is a really easy process for you to get started. When you trial Goodshuffle Pro, you have access to a real account so that you can start to grow your business. As I mentioned at the top of the recording today, we work with companies of all sizes, whether you're in that growth of getting started, where you're, going from 1 to maybe 2 people, all the way up to bigger teams. You're still experiencing a lot of the same problems. And I just saw a chat in from a customer or someone attending live here, will this work for someone who is doing a startup business with just a couple of family members? I have inventory for small jobs because I still work full time, don't take jobs a lot. I would venture to say that, again, this is where technology can play a vital role in scaling your business. I don't know for you, Paulette, you would have to answer, but a lot of the folks that are in this straddling position are straddling a full-time job and what they want to be their full-time job far too long. And that's a stressful time to have to manage basically two full-time jobs. And the businesses that we work with that are in that state often see that they can grow to the point of quitting that full-time job if that's in their desire, if that's what they're working towards, or they're automating the business enough through technology that it becomes less stressful to manage and is therefore eating away from your personal time less. So they're able to make it to the soccer games or show up to the school functions or have a social life outside of work hours. So I absolutely have seen Goodshuffle Pro work firsthand for businesses like yours, and I hope you will explore us even further for your business.